Good morning and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims! Yes, we are back once again, breaking it down verse by verse into factual, logical English statements so we as people can understand who or what is Allah and what does he intend with his message in the Quran, and more importantly, how does that affect you and I in the current day in our lives. So as I always do before I start, I'm going to tell you if you have any doubts as to what I'm about to say or any of the things I have previously said, please feel free to buy one of these out of any good bookshop or from Amazon where I got mine. And then after reading it, you'll realise that every single word I'm about to go through now is 100% true and accurate to what Allah says in his book and what Muslims believe today. So, if you've been keeping up with the series, you will have realised that we have to carry on going through the laws restricting the movements of women in Islam, including how they are to be married, what happens to them in divorce, and how they get rid of themselves should they ever become too sinful to be allowed to exist. So, with that in mind, let's carry on. 167. Mothers must suckle her offspring for 2 years if the man demands this of her. He shall bear the cost of her food and clothing, which will remain his property. No soul should have a burden greater than he can bear. Mothers should not be mistreated on account of her sons nor fathers, though a heir is accountable if the man doth decide, and there is no blame upon him. If you give your child up, there is no blame, provided you pay your blessings and ownership to the new family. Do not advantage yourself upon this law, for Allah know all that you do, and you shall fear Allah. Now, breaking that down, that's quite interesting, isn't it? So, we went straight from mistreating women and making sure that they don't have any ideas about leaving or doubting the husband's word, otherwise they'll end up on the street, starving and in sin. Now we are being told they must suckle their offspring for 2 years, if the man demands it. So the man gets to decide whether the mother is going to breastfeed her baby or not. Presumably he can tell her not to if he doesn't want her to. If he wants to remain in ownership of her teats and have of the bounty of her breast for himself, then he can say, no, you are not allowed to feed the baby. I am taking that milk for myself. And you may think that I am embellishing here for the sake of humour, but I guarantee you, even though it's not expressly described in the Quran of the Muslims, if you meet other Muslims, they will tell you that this is the case. He then carries on and says, he shall bear the cost of her food and clothing, which will remain his property. So even though Allah says you have to feed your wife and buy her clothes while she's pregnant, because obviously she's unable to work and earn her own money, you as the man own her stuff. She doesn't own her own stuff. She's basically like a slave. She's not allowed property. She is property of you, O Muslim, and you are generously giving her stuff to borrow, i.e. her clothes are borrowed off you. So technically what that means is if she upsets the man and you kick her out, she is not allowed to wear her own clothes because they are owned by the man. You have to bear the cost of her food and clothing, which will remain your property. No soul should have a burden greater than he can bear. Now, it's very interesting, isn't it, how it sounds like something good. No soul should have a burden greater than he can bear. Sounds nice, but it's interesting how it says he. It doesn't say she shouldn't have a burden greater than she can bear. We don't care about her burden. This is about the man. So if the woman becomes a burden on the man, no man should have a burden greater than he can bear. So what that means is, woman, even though you're pregnant, emotional and stressed out and sick all the time and carrying this baby to term, don't be a burden on your husband or Allah will not be happy with you. You will be in sin and you shall be punished. Mothers should not be mistreated on account of her sons nor fathers, though a heir is accountable if the man doth decide, and there is no blame upon him. So I think what this means, even though it's not written particularly well, but I think what this means is, if your son or daughter dies in the womb or upon birth, the mother and father are not accountable for that death. The actual blame goes on the baby for dying. But if the man decides that the child should be killed, there is no blame upon him. Now, I am actually interpreting this. This isn't expressly written in here, so that's what I think this means. Obviously, it's not written particularly well, so it could mean anything. if you just read the word straight, it doesn't mean anything at all. So you have to interpret this. And I think that is Allah's actual desire, to leave you in limbo in the dark and having to interpret his word. And the reason is then, and he actually says, there is no blame upon you, you blame the child. So if anything goes wrong, it's not the Muslim's fault, it's the dead child's fault. How merciful of you, Allah. Then he goes on. If you give your child up, there is no blame provided you pay your blessing and ownership to the new family. So even if the child survives, but you decide you don't want another child, you can sell the baby off to another family. And how that works is you give the blessing to the mosque, you pay the money to the mosque, you don't get to keep it, and also you pay money to the new family who are getting the baby. So it's like baby laundering. Like, it clearly, although it isn't said in the words, and I find this is what Allah does to avoid blame for the things that he's saying, the baby has no value when it's born. It's not like a life, a soul, like in Christianity or Judaism or in the secular world where a life is value in itself. No. If the parents don't find that it's valuable, if it's a daughter, for instance, and it won't be growing up to kill Jews, and you've already got a daughter, then you can just sell it off to someone else as long as you give money to the mosque and Allah will be happy with you. If you give your child up, there is no blame, provided you pay your blessing to the mosque and ownership to the new family. Do not advantage yourself upon this law, as Allah know all that you do, so you must fear only Allah. So if we break this down, at the end of the verse, what this is saying is, although you can sell your daughters to other people if you don't want them, and if they die in the womb it's not your fault, don't take advantage of this, O Muslims, because I'll be watching you. Allah will know that you'll do that. So you can't just mass produce children and then sell them for profit to other Muslims. It's only 90% bad then. That is a good thing. This is the first good thing that the whole we've found in this whole book. Don't mass produce babies for profit. That's literally the best thing I can say about this book. And if you do, I'll be watching you. Allah will catch you out because he knows everything and you should fear him. I.e., if you do this, it's going to get in the way of your Jew killing, O Muslim, so don't. Worship me hard, do my Quran stuff, and don't even think about rebelling, having questions, or not doing exactly what I tell you. That's what this means. I'll carry on. 168. Upon your death, O Muslim, she shall wait 4 months to remarry, and if there is no blame on you or your father. If she dispose of herself in a reasonable manner, Allah will be aware of what ye do. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Disclaimer, we're now going to be talking about women killing themselves because they're no longer useful to their men. So this is Allah saying this, not me. I want to make that clear. I completely disagree with this, and I will tell you why. He starts off by saying, upon your death, O Muslim. So the Muslim man, when he gets killed in battle or something like this is what's going to happen to his property, his wife and his children. She shall wait 4 months to remarry, and there is no blame on you nor your father if she dispose of herself in a reasonable manner. Now, disposing of yourself in a reasonable manner, what is this? Well, it doesn't expressly describe it in here. Once again, Allah ixnay on the details because he doesn't want to be blamed for this horrible evil that he's putting on these people. But we know from Google searching and speaking to other Muslims, disposing of herself in a reasonable manner means killing herself in a way that doesn't leave a mess to clear up for her family. So maybe running away and drowning or something like that. You know, don't kill yourself in the house where it's going to make a mess. Don't leave a body in the middle of, don't kill yourself outside the mosque and make a mess, oh woman Muslim. Go away and kill yourself somewhere else so that we don't have to pay for your funeral or clear up any mess. That is what it means by if she disposes of herself reasonably, and after she's dead there will be no blame on you nor your father. So between the lines, if we break that down, O Muslim, you could quite happily get rid of her in a reasonable way yourself or force her to do this. As long as there's no evidence, you bear no blame, neither your father. And the reason they're saying this, dear reader, ladies, gents and Pikachus, is because even though Allah's too much of a coward to actually say it in his English Quran, this is directly describing the honour killing system. Oh yes, the honour killing, such a lovely thing to have in your holy book, which is peaceful and merciful. Far be it from me to complain about the Quran of the Muslims and its author, Allah. But if I were you, Allah, maybe I wouldn't be encouraging people to kill themselves and for sons and husbands with displeasure over their daughters to make them kill themselves, O Allah. But what do I know? I didn't write this. Allah did. I'm not Allah. Allah is. That's what it says. If you don't believe me, buy and read the Quran of the Muslims for yourself and you will see. This is what it says. So we carry on. Oh yeah, and the end of that verse says, if she dispose of herself in a reasonable manner, and there's no blame on you or your father, Allah will be aware of what you do. So you're supposed to think, if you're a Westerner, that Allah is going to be annoyed at this, and he's going to be watching you to make sure you do this correctly. But I think in the way that this is written, what this means is Allah will be pleased with you if you off your daughters who are sinful, because it's better to get rid of them than to have sinful women in the colony. That is how it reads. I'll carry on. 169. If you promise your daughter or wife to another man, and she disposes of herself, then again there is no blame upon you, the other man, or your father. Do not make any secret pact nor prevent them, for Allah knows that you do cherish them deep in your heart. Honour must be upheld, for Allah knoweth all that you will do, and know that he is oft forgiving. End of verse. So, let's break that little juicy morsel down. In keeping with what we already know about how Allah doesn't want to openly say, kill your daughters and get rid of them if they're sinful, because it's better for you to not be distracted, so that you can get to my end times genocidal prophecy and fucking kill all those Jews and Christians and atheists. Instead, he decides to be a little bit more subtle in his language, and that is why he starts off, if you promise your daughter or wife to another man, and then she disposes of herself, i.e. if you promise your daughter in marriage to someone she doesn't love and she ends up killing herself, or she denies you and doesn't agree to marry this guy and you honour kill her, if that happens, again there is no blame on you or your father. So if your father is pressuring you, O Muslim, to do this, or you decide to do it yourself, there's absolutely no blame upon you. The blame will be upon the dead woman herself. Then again, there is no blame upon you, the man, or her, or your father. Do not make any secret pact, nor prevent them from doing this. So what that means is, don't make a secret pact with the woman. If you're going to kill yourself, please let me know and we'll discuss this and we'll figure something out. No, don't do that, because Allah is expressly telling you she would be better off dead, mercied, rather than having a chance to talk out her problems and actually find a solution where she doesn't need to kill herself or die. Do not make any secret pact nor prevent them, for Allah knows that you do cherish them in your heart. Allah knows you love them really, even though you're encouraging them to kill themselves or killing them personally yourself, and then having no blame and putting the blame on the corpse. Even despite that, Allah knows you love them really deep in your heart, so you are a good righteous Muslim. That's what this means. And then he rounds out the verse by saying, honour must be upheld, for Allah knoweth all you will do, and know that he is oft forgiving. End of verse, end of reading. Now, once again, we find this oft forgiving thing, and we're starting to formulate reasoning to understand what he means by oft forgiving. If you bump off your sinful daughters, O Muslims, or they magically dispose of themselves in a reasonable manner, it's not your fault. And even if it is your fault, let's say you accidentally kill one of them, like we saw in Iran quite recently with the poor 16-year-old girl that they raped and killed because she spoke up against Islam. If that happens and you are caught and charged, Allah is oft forgiving, so it's fine, you'll be forgiven. It doesn't matter if you've done it before or you're willing to do it again. All that matters, and I quote, is that honour is upheld for Allah. So, in summary, this is more of the same. Allah fucking hates women. Not only does he hate women, he needs them, and that pisses him off. So he's going to make sure they have no freedom, they're completely subdued and oppressed, and the Muslim man gets all the benefit of having a woman in his life, with none of the drawbacks of having to make any effort. And if they don't work out, he can just get rid of them or convince them to kill themselves without blame. None of his family get the blame is on the corpse. And if this happens, Allah knows that you deep down didn't mean it and you really loved them, so there's no blame on you. Honour will be upheld, and if you don't agree, you don't fear Allah, you are sinful and not righteous. And that is the end of this video, so I hope you enjoyed hearing this horrible, evil, sinful thing in this Quran of the Muslims that Allah dictates to his Muslims. And you are ready for something even worse in the next episode, because trust me, it doesn't get any better. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that and you learned something. Good night, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. Reading this book is literally like falling down an endless flight of stairs, isn't it? It's like every bump makes it worse, but the next one's going to be worse still. So if you want to keep up with our next Quran of the Muslims reading, that will be at this evening at 4:15, so I'll see you then. In the meantime, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.